When you think of classic Taito games like Space Invaders or Bubble Bobble, it's likely that the global spread of communism and anti-Jewish sentiment are the last things that come to mind. But these things are essential to understanding the founding of video game powerhouse that is Taito. The roots of this story can be traced back to 1903, when a document called the Protocols of the Elders of Zion was disseminated throughout Eastern Europe. This document described detailed plans for Jews around the world to achieve global domination, and it's a major contributor to conspiracy theories about a Jewish plot to rule the world to this day. It was also a catalyst for various anti-Jewish pogroms throughout Eastern Europe. Despite being debunked as completely false, many still chose to believe it, including people as far away as Japan. The Japanese interpretation of this document, albeit still very racist, was quite the opposite of that in Eastern Europe. The Japanese government created a plan to take Jewish refugees who were fleeing from Eastern Europe and resettle them in Manchuria, which they had recently captured from China. The goal was to make use of the rumored Jewish business prowess, and also to invite investment from powerful Jewish businessmen in New York and Hollywood, who they believed to be ruled by the Jews. This plan was called the Fugu plan, and as weird as it might seem, it actually resulted in thousands of Jewish families ending up in Manchuria, including the family of Michael Kogan. The Kogan family fled their home in the Ukraine not long after the Russian Revolution had caused instability in the region and led to anti-Jewish riots such as the Kiev pogrom. The family settled in Manchuria, where Michael met Colonel Norihiro Yasue, one of the chief architects of the Fugu plan. Being a gifted student, he spent the majority of the war attending school at Waseda University in Tokyo. In 1944, he moved back to China and opened a business called Taitung in Shanghai, which sold wigs and floor coverings. But this was short-lived. In much the same way as his family fled Ukraine after the Russian Revolution, the Communist Revolution in China caused him to flee to Tokyo in 1950 and set up a new business called Taito. The name Taito comes from a portmanteau of Yudaya, the Japanese word for Jews, and Kyokuto, meaning Far East. In other words, being a Jewish person resettled in East Asia is a core part of the company's DNA. Taito Trading Company started importing things like vodka, as well as peanut vending machines. They eventually quit the vodka business to focus on the much more lucrative vending machine business, and they expanded this business into refurbishing broken jukeboxes that they got from US military bases and reselling them with a mix of American and Japanese records, a rare thing at the time. They soon commanded enough market share to become the exclusive dealer for Seaberg Corporation. The popularity of their jukebox business led them to expand into other types of entertainment-based machines, especially electromechanical games, including the hit game Crown Soccer Special in 1967, which incorporated pinball flippers, and a reworking of this game called Crown Basketball, which became the highest-earning arcade game at the Tampa Fair in 1968. This had Taito poised in a prime position for the rise in video games, which stormed Japan in the 1970s. Like most video game companies at the time, Taito started off copying Pong, with their version being called Elipong. But it wasn't until 1978, with the release of the breakaway hit Space Invaders, that the company really started soaring. Space Invaders still stands as one of the most popular games in arcade history, and it's partly responsible for the meteoric rise of the Japanese video game industry. Unfortunately, just a few years after the game was released, Kogan died while on a business trip to Los Angeles, and his son was put in place as the chairman of the company. Taito went on to create a bunch of incredible games after this that also sold record numbers. Games like Arkanoid, Bubble Bobble, and the Darius series. And Taito's contributions to the world of video games cannot be overstated. I mean, Space Invaders alone was the first game to ever save players' high scores. Even Miyamoto Shigeru, the creator of Mario, Zelda, and Donkey Kong, said that Space Invaders was one of the main things that inspired him to become a video game creator. Games like Ninja Warrior and the Darius series were some of the first cabinets to use multiple screens. Darius used 3. Looking at the massive success that this company had, you could make a case that the Fugu plan achieved its goal of bringing over business-savvy Jewish refugees to enrich the Japanese economy, however misguided their intentions might have been. These days, Taito is a wholly owned subsidiary of Square Enix, but they still operate a fleet of arcades around the country. So if you're ever in Japan, and you find yourself in one of the many Taito Station arcades, you can impress your friends by telling them that Taito means Jew in the Far East, and also that one of the biggest and most successful video game companies in all of Japan was founded by a Jewish Ukrainian immigrant who had fled 2 communist revolutions to achieve his dream in Japan.